guys, it's Aoife from Fred Weasley Died Laughing, and I'm here with my weekly wrap up. I read 4 books this week and I actually DNF'd another one, which is really strange for me. You guys know I never DNF books pretty much ever, but I had started reading Swan Song, which is was longlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction this year, and I had it out from the library and I needed to read it because I needed to bring it back to the library basically, and I actually only read about 30 pages and I knew from those 30 pages that I was not going to enjoy the book. I don't know now if it's the type book that I will go back to eventually and really enjoy, but just at the time I was reading it a couple of days ago, I was just very much not in the mood for it. I knew it would be a struggle to read. Within those 30 pages I could feel myself already starting to skim the pages, which is never a good sign. So I made the decision to put that one down and pick up another book, and I think it was a great decision. The first book I finished was The Raven's Tale by Kat Winters. I do actually have a physical copy of this book, but I forgot to bring it with me. So I will show you the picture, and Kat Winter always manages to have the most beautiful covers, I think, of all our books, and this one really is a nice kind of that creepy, dark, mystical feeling. And this book is all about Edgar Allan Poe, who, as you know, is an author slash poet, and I will be honest, I have never read any Edgar Allan Poe works, which I know is probably crazy. I do think I know that a lot of people in the US tend to study him in school, but he is not really someone who is studied a lot, particularly anyway in secondary school. In Ireland he would never be a poet that would come up because we tend to focus on Irish poets. I don't know whether he is studied maybe in college. I say he is, but I didn't do an English degree in college, so I wouldn't have really had any cause to pick him up. Someone that I have not really, I've heard about, but I've never really experienced any of his work before. And this book basically is all about Edgar Allan Poe as a teenager, and he's super angsty and he is struggling to finish his poems. He's struggling to finish some of his, what will end up being some of his most famous poems, and basically in this book his muse comes alive. So his muse kind of is created into a physical form that he can see and that other people can see through his ideas, and her name is Lenore, which is the name of one of his poems, and she is this dark, muddy creature with feathers for hair, and she's slowly transforming into a raven. And it's really interesting seeing his interactions with his muse. I loved the idea in this book that muses are something that do come alive, and people can recognise. They're like, oh, is that your muse? Like, muses are things that do come alive and do kind of walk about in the world before they transform into like their final state, which could be like an animal state or something else. And I really just like this idea of, like, you know, muses being like coming about and just being up and walking around with other people and inspiring other people. So yeah, I did quite enjoy this. I do find always with Kat Winters, her writing is very flowery and very beautiful, but this one in particular was very like metaphorical. There was really nice prose, but I did enjoy it, but there wasn't anything really gripping in it for me where I was dying to pick up the book and finish it. I was just, you know, I was kind of forcing myself to pick it up and read it. And I did like kind of the dark, mysterious world that it was in. It was very angsty because he was like very full of angst, and I think 16-year-old me, 15-year-old me would have loved him, but I did enjoy it. It just wasn't one that I absolutely loved. I will say I got this in exchange for an honest review from A Brinson Chronicle, so I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars overall. It was good, but it wasn't one of my best books ever. After that, I picked up Dratted Nation by Justina Ireland. I got this in exchange from an honest review from Titan Press, and this one's really interesting. This is a historical fiction with zombies. So this is set a little bit after the American Civil War, and slavery has been emancipated, and we are seeing how zombies have, I don't know, somehow been created in the world, and they are out ravaging the land. We are following our character called Jane, who grew up in quite like a privileged position for a black girl at the time, but she is now in this kind of school for training. So in this world, even though slavery isn't really around anymore, racism is still very much a thing, unfortunately, and so the black people are basically used as warriors, and they are used to protect the white people from the zombies. So basically the black people are generally the ones that are most killed and the ones in most danger from these zombies. And Jane is in this special school learning how to be an attendant, which basically means that she will be a specialised warrior assigned to a white lady to protect her. And Jane is very interesting. She was a really good character. I really liked her. She was very fully formed. Like, I feel as a character, like there was just so much going on with her, and the way things are slowly revealed about her past and how she grew up, and like little snippets about like romances she's had in like the past couple of years when she's been in this area, and people she knows and her relationships with all these people. I feel like the way it's revealed to the reader was done really, really skillfully, and I feel like it really formed Jane as fully fledged in my head, and I loved that. I did really enjoy this as like a zombie story. I do enjoy a zombie story now and again, and I feel that this one was just not a nice fresh take on it, particularly the fact that it was historical fiction, but then there was also this massive kind of underlying thing of racial injustice in this as well, which was done so well. Like, there were so many things in this book where basically there were these white men, like somehow they were able to make the zombie plague racist, and like, while it's insane to think about, like I can fully imagine these people being able to do this and saying all this like stupid stuff. But yeah, because of all that, it actually was quite believable as well. The story, the end of the story, like, it ends in a way that I presume there might be another one, but I'm actually not sure if there will be. I feel like there's a lot of stuff near the end where like Jane is sent off into this town, and this town, like, from the get-go is obviously not a great place, and I feel like the story felt slightly weak in this area, and more so I think the start of it seems stronger than the second half of it, but again, I did just enjoy following Jane as a person, and I did think she was great, so I did really enjoy her, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars overall. The next book I finished was my audiobook. That was Bright Ruin by Vic James. This is the third book in Dark Gifts trilogy. The first book is Gilded Cage, I think, and I can't remember what the second book is now, but I've talked about this before. This is basically a England where there are a special set of people who have magical powers, and basically the normal people, so like the muggles of this world, have to do something called their slave days, which means that they have to either work for the skilled families, or they have to go to these like slave towns and basically like work in these factories, which in hard conditions, and it's a really, really tough life. A lot of people die from it, and there's basically this massive injustice in this world between the normal people and the people with magical powers, even though the normal people do outnumber the people with magical powers. And this book, it kind of follows this family who end up on this kind of path of revolution against the skilled people. So this is the third book, and it's the final book. I really, really enjoyed this. I had read the other two, so this is the first one I experienced on audiobook, and I did actually really, really enjoy the audiobook version. It took me a little bit to remember everything that had happened in the previous book, and just the characters and stuff, but once I kind of got into the story, it flowed really, really well for me, and I feel like there's just this amazing thing in these books where no one is safe, and you never know when someone is just going to like be killed at the end of a chapter. So there are these chapters where like there's a massive shock at the end of them, and I do kind of love that. So yeah, I was very scared for like my favourite characters in this. I really loved, there were some romances in this one in particular that I really, really enjoyed, that you could kind of see coming, but I didn't know if it would actually happen, and it did happen, so I was happy with that. And I just love how the magic is played out in this, and how people use it, and we see how powerful it can be. I really love the ending of this. There were just some nice little things at the end that I enjoyed, and yeah, I just really liked it. I love if there were some like novellas or something in this world, because I'm not sure this is a world that I want to leave behind. I'd love to read more stories within it. But yeah, I don't know if that would ever happen. So I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, and I really enjoyed it. I do urge people to check this series out if you are looking for a magical London. Next book I read, I did have a physical copy this morning, but I managed to finish it this morning, and my friend came over and I immediately gave it to my friend to read because I wanted to see what she would think about it. So I will show you a picture of it, and that's Her Kind by Niamh Boyce. This is a historical fiction, and it's actually about a witch trials that happened in Ireland in 1324, which I never knew about and didn't know anything about this, so I'm going to have to read up more about this witch trial when I finish doing this video. And this is basically, it is a historical fiction. It's about this woman and her daughter who they're kind of running away from, I think they're just running from the mountains. They're running from their tribe, who seem to have been killed, I think, in a clash with another family tribe, and they end up in Kilkenny in this town, brought in as servants to this family with this woman who the mother knows from her childhood, and their names are, they have these Irish names, but they are renamed in this town because apparently the Irish at this time, obviously Ireland is still being ruled by England, and the Irish at this time are basically seen as savages and they aren't treated very well, so they are renamed Petronella and Basilia by their new mistress, whose name is Alice, and they're brought in, and things kind of just start happening in this house, and eventually, you know, there are obviously accusations eventually of witchcraft and sorcery by the town priest or the bishop against the women in this household, and we kind of see how that ends up happening and how the witch trial ends up happening, basically. This was really interesting. It's one that I don't know if I really loved it or if I felt just kind of neutral about it. And did like how the story was told. We were kind of getting in alternate chapters, mostly from the mother and the daughter, and then we have some chapters from the bishop and why he is kind of set against the woman Alice, and why he's kind of jealous of her, basically her money and her wealth and her status, and he just doesn't like her, and he decides that he wants to ruin her, basically, and the witchcraft thing is how he decides to do that. But I did really enjoy the story of it. There was something about this book that reminded me of The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton. And I don't know exactly what it was. I don't know whether it was the historical aspect of it, or I think there was this really like strange dynamic. This book is mostly about the women of the story, and it's this house of women, and there was a dynamic between all the women in the story and this kind of history. I don't know whether it was the dynamic between the women that reminded me a little bit of The Miniaturist, which is also a house with a lot of women in it, and this strange dynamic between them that reminded me of it, or the style of writing. I'm not really sure, but there was something there anyway. This is the type of book I don't think will appeal to everyone, the style of it, but I quite enjoyed it, and I think other people will probably enjoy it. It could be one that for people who like Hannah Kent might like this one. I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars overall, and I also got this book in exchange for an honest review from Penguin Ireland, so thank you to them for that, and I really enjoyed it. That's everything I've read this week. Please let me know what you guys think about the books I've read, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye!